Are you following your own path or the one determined by others? Believe it or not, but the movie is making waves. It made me realize that the path I thought was mine was actually a sham, an illusion, and deep down, I was just another puppet, chasing after what society wanted from me. That might sound strange, coming from a movie that's light, upbeat, and full of humor. But if you look at this movie from an existentialist perspective, you'll understand how many of us live in what the French philosopher Jean-Paul Sartre called bad faith. The protagonist of the story, Kadu Maverick, lives in the cold, monotonous, and dull cold of January. But no one understands him. He's a stranger, someone who's just running away from responsibilities.
He spends all day in the water, avoiding his responsibilities, just running away. Laying eggs isn't for just anyone. If you don't do it right, Glenn and my brother Kadu don't understand that. You have to be responsible, be a man. You have to be tough to sit on the egg, you know?
Yeah, around here, no one saw his worth. What he likes to do most and his way of thinking are a joke to everyone around him. That's why right away, he gets along with Joan Franco. People thought I was kind of crazy. Desperate for a chance to prove his worth, Kadu leaves everything behind. And even though he was rejected, he gave his all to reach the whale, which would take him to Pingu Island, where he would compete in a surfing tournament.
I've never ever won anything in my life. I just wanted to feel like a winner, just once.
I imagine that many people here, just like me, identified with Kadu when they watched the movie for the first time. They were inspired by his courage to go after his dreams, not settling for the life that everyone else around him seemed to have accepted. He wants to be different, and he's not afraid to show it. But over time, I started to realize that, although Kadu seemed to be acting authentically and simply following his heart, there was a deep problem in his behavior, something that was hidden behind his dream, arrogance, and false self-confidence. Although Kadu was passionate about surfing, he fell into a trap that is almost impossible not to fall into, especially when you're younger, the blind pursuit of recognition.
Kadu is me, man. Let me be myself. When are they going to let me be myself?
I think that's something totally natural in a human being's life. You spend your whole life with people doubting your abilities, trying to discourage you. So looking for that shut up moment is natural, and it's also a big motivator in many people's lives, and a lot of times it works. Goal for Manchester United, Cristiano Ronaldo. Without a doubt, this behavior can lead to more dedication. However, what many fail to realize is that keeping your mind healthy is also part of the process. All the preparation is useless if you can't keep your mind calm and balanced. I will never forget what the 2014 World Cup was like. I had never seen anything like that. This example explains what I'm trying to say well, because on that occasion, the emotional burden on the Brazilian players was so great that they simply couldn't hide it. They couldn't control themselves during the national anthem before the matches, and they broke down after victories. That World Cup was full of tears, and it was clear that something wasn't right there. All the pressure that was put on because of a World Cup in our own country, and the way the players let themselves be consumed by it. That's why it created an atmosphere of tension that wasn't good for anyone, except for the opponents. Of course, again, in that goal, man, nobody can explain what happened. It was crazy. It was madness, man. 7-1 in a semifinal, the biggest thrashing ever in the knockout stage of the tournament, made it very clear that something was really wrong there. And I think it's funny that people hardly talk about this psychological factor. They'll blame lack of dedication, arrogance, an outdated coach, lack of quality, which sometimes might even be true. But very few talk about this mental aspect. And I like that the movie is giving it another second. It's precisely because it brings a bit of attention to this more human side of success. Because just like Kadu Maverick, many of these athletes start in sports out of a passion for the joy they had as children, playing soccer.
Always take it seriously, but you have to have joy on the field.
If there's no joy, it's over. But as the years go by, there comes the pressure for results, everyday problems, and social pressure. In the end, all the pleasure you had in what you love goes away.
I don't know if I'll still have the mindset to handle more soccer.
I wanted to bring a real example because our protagonist in Surf's Up was going down that path.
That's the best place in the world to be, in the barrel.
Seriously.
When you get in the barrel, you don't want to leave.
Man, that's awesome.
Yes, son, there's nothing like it.
Okay, but then, besides that, how many points do we get for being in the barrel? How much does that matter for us to win the contest, you know?
For him, surfing was no longer just about following his passion. He had fallen into the trap of living in bad faith, which I mentioned at the beginning of the video. The trap of living inauthentically, giving in to external pressures from society.
You have to enjoy it, kid.
There are just 3 days until the championship, so I don't have time to enjoy it.
And that was the big realization I had. Because even within what seems to be your own path, when you seem to have found yourself and freed yourself from trying to meet other people's expectations, it's still very hard to let go of that constant search for external rewards. That made me reflect on the weight of freedom in our lives, about how hard it is to be truly free. Freedom that in the movie is very well portrayed in Juan Franco Irado. For me, he is the representation of the message of the movie A. That's probably why they make him win the tournament in the end. Like, how does it feel to win, João? I won. He approaches surfing in a way that's completely opposite to Kadu. He's a character who, even if unconsciously, has achieved his freedom. He doesn't care about anything, lives without worries, and just enjoys the moments. That cloud even looks like a kitten. And my intention here isn't to say you should be like João Franco. After all, I think people who are like him are just born that way. That kind of behavior is so natural, I just don't believe it can be forced. I believe it might be something a person has worked to achieve, and maybe that's a blessing. You might not be the most well-regarded guy in society, but that doesn't really matter. After all, those people don't care about that at all. On the other hand, for the vast majority, for so-called normal people, letting go a bit of this outside world to connect with life isn't a simple task, but it's something that the two main characters in Surf's Up managed to achieve. That's where the movie's real beauty lies. In the transformation of Kadu and Big Zay, which happens as they spend time together, the movie presents us with 3 different moments of Big Zay's character: the legend, the rebel, and the wise man. The first is that of a multi-champion, a reference in the sport and the great idol in Kadu Maverick's life. Zay reached the top of the surfing world, but let himself be defined by fame, recognition, and titles.
Winning ended up being everything to me.
And because of that, when he saw a rookie show up to take his place, he gave up.
He started surfing circles around me, doing incredible tricks I had never seen before. I didn't want to go back to that beach as a loser, with all my fans there. Everyone would think that Big Z had been surpassed, so I said Big Z is dead and that's how it's going to stay.
Time made Zay come to appreciate surfing just for what it gave him. And because of that, he couldn't stand not being recognized as the big guy in the sport anymore. With this supposed death comes the character's next phase, the rebel, with another name and living in anonymity. This is the version that rebelled against the world. The disappointment he suffered was so great that he never surfed again, not even went to a beach. And it stayed that way for many years, until his path crossed with Kadu Maverick, the ambitious, dreamy, and innocent young man, making Big Zay see everything he once was in this boy, and that will touch him. Kadu manages to take him back to a beach, discovers the whole truth behind his story, and the time they spend together gradually transforms both characters, while Kadu helps Zay let go of his resentment towards life, making him see its beauty again and stop trying to deny it. Every moment, Zay will take Kadu off the path that brought him frustration and unhappiness, showing him the importance of enjoying life and finding his true self.
Who cares about what Big Zay said? You have to follow your own path. Okay, cool, but I don't know what my path is.
Honestly, it's much easier to live for others. You convince yourself that you're chasing your dreams, but actually you're just chasing something you could call social validators. Something that makes people understand you, respect you. And Big Z appears in the story as proof that this recognition is worthless. Constantly chasing it will only make you an empty person, surrounded by empty people. If you win,
you and I are gonna be famous, huh? Hey, look at this kid, he's a gardener.
Z tries to help Kadu reconnect with the feeling that made him love surfing, to truly connect with his passion again. And for that, he'll only agree to train him when he feels that Kadu is truly enjoying the process, when he finally shows signs that he's forgotten a bit about the outside world.
This is enjoyment, man. You're having fun, right? Ah, now I am. Okay, see, you got through it. Did you make it? Are you ready?
I know this talk might end up sounding a bit idealistic, especially because I'm building most of my reasoning on top of a children's cartoon. But while I was writing about the movie's message, I couldn't help but remember a real-life example that really caught my attention. This is Lucas Beraldo, a defender who was very successful at São Paulo last year. And the guy had this strange habit of, before the games, in that tense pre-game moment, breaking out into a big smile. So the Tricolor's defender is always laughing. Obviously, they went and asked him about it, and he said that it was his way of taking some of the pressure off the matches. It was a moment he used to think of a happy memory. In this case, him as a child, kicking a ball around the streets of his hometown.
I remember here that I used to kick the ball around when I was little. This is where I learned to shoot, where I learned to control the ball. It was by playing here.
And that worked really well for him. Of course, there's also a part that's talent and hard work, but the way you approach all of this can bring unnecessary tension. And coincidentally or not, Beraldo impressed a lot with his calmness and confidence in the games. Today, he's at Paris Saint-Germain after a multi-million transfer, and now he's drawing attention in Europe because of that big smile at a moment that's usually taken so seriously. I'm betting strongly that he'll be our defender in the next World Cup. And since we're talking about this mental side of success, relating it to the movie Surf's Up, I still believe that next to him, we'll have another athlete who seems to handle the sport and the pressure it brings with more ease. Eder Militão, currently at Real Madrid. I don't know him personally or anything, so this is just my guess. But from what I could observe about him and from what I've heard people say, I got the feeling that he's one of those real-life chicken joes. If anyone knows better and can tell me a bit about this, leave it in the comments.
We're feeling really good, and I think this World Cup is going to go well for us.
But going back to the big reflection I wanted to bring from this movie, it's up to you to apply this to your own life. I think we get so focused on winning that we end up forgetting to appreciate the process. Until we get there, we don't realize that most of our lives are in that process. And more than that, I think it's worth reflecting on whether we're not at our best when we're truly enjoying what we do. If you like this video, you'll probably like these. Here. In one of them, I explain how South Korea became one of the most depressive countries in the world and why this is so relevant to our lives. And in the other, the life lesson behind the comedy that marked my teenage years, American Pie.